Welcome to the Happy Being Well podcast, where we talk about strategies and insights so you can live happy being well with your host, Rita Farruggia. This podcast is presented by happybeingwell.com, your online store providing the best in all natural wellness products, such as natural essential oils, all natural bath products, all natural facial masks, all natural deodorants, irresistible leggings, crystals, including crystal home decor and kitchen items, herbal teas, natural sleep aids, and so much more natural wellness goodies at happybeingwell.com. Free shipping on any order within the USA at happybeingwell.com. Now enjoy the show.
Hi guys, welcome to another exciting episode of Happy Being Well, and we do have an exciting episode. We have Gary John Bishop, the famous author of the book Unfuk Yourself, New York Times bestselling author. He is written a new book called Now What, and it's going to be released July 14th, which is the date this podcast is going to be released. So I've read the book. It's super good. I couldn't actually stop reading it. Gary, as if anyone, most people have read Enough Yourself. I mean, I don't even know a friend who hasn't read Enough Yourself. So if you love that book, you're gonna love Now What. I couldn't even put it down. I kept reading it and reading it and reading it, and actually really related to the stage of my life where I actually came to the same conclusions that Gary brings about in the book and I'm a personal development junkie myself. So I quite often just recently kind of said, now what, without going into all the victim stories and like sitting and like, wasting energy. And now what, your life and the truth you've been avoiding. New York Times bestselling author Gary delivers his most uncompromising book yet, one that challenges not just how people change their lives, but how they think about change itself. So Gary, so your book is called Now What? And you say it's not about healing, fixing, or improving. If it's not about getting better, what is it actually about?
Well, first, thanks for having me on your show. I think if you examine your life, if you just step back and take a look, you'll notice like a lot of your life has been about improvement, making this better, fixing this thing, and it's actually a bit of a detour. And I go into this in the book because what we end up doing is pursuing fixes. Now, if you're someone who's pursuing fixes, if there's something about yourself, like, I want to be more confident, or, I'd like to have more peace of mind, or I think I should be, more motivated and more, whatever it might be, you're already starting with that there's something about you that doesn't work or doesn't work the way that you think it should. And so what you end up with is you got a model of you that you think doesn't work. And now you're going to try and fix that and improve that. And that becomes your whole game. That's your whole game. It's fixing this thing that you've already decided isn't working. So, and you kind of find that out in the book that you'll end up down a pathway for many, many people where they look at their life and they wonder how the heck they got here, because this was not the plan.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes, this was not the plan. So this is not the plan. So I think, what your book kind of addresses, which I love, is as a result of reading your book, you really begin to understand this is not the plan. So now what? But now what is really hinging upon who you are. And like, I know you say, well, who is that? Most people don't know who they are. And
Right.
you kind of like address why. And so, but you focus on your responsibility, but you kind of like have these two different definitions of like there's motivational responsibility and then there's unconditional responsibility. So can
Right.
you like explain that further? Because that's my take on really like now what? Like, okay, now you're responsible to make now what? Whatever now what is going to be for you, right?
Right.
Am I
Right.
understanding that properly?
Yeah, you're in a good spot. So
Okay.
if you take the idea that most people relate to responsibility in the kind of domain of like blame and fault, right? So who is to blame for this? And so that's where we end up either kind of self-flagellating, like just beating myself up, like I've screwed up, or it's somebody else, if they didn't do this and they didn't do that, and if that thing didn't happen to me and la la la. That's the general paradigm that we exist in a world of responsibility. And so we end up avoiding responsibility, right? So we end up kind of shuffling our way around it. And then whatever the consequences out of that, whatever the consequences out of me avoiding responsibility, that's going to be what I'm going to try and fix in life. That's what I'm going to try and repair in life, right? And so there's a really important part in this book where I say, okay, now what? Now, it seems like those are just two words. They're not. They're really important words. And if you address them properly and you think about them, you'll see they place you here. They place you right here. And so if somebody said, and it could be anything, right? So, my marriage is falling apart. Okay, now what? And then you'll answer the question maybe, well, this is going to mean this and this is going to mean that. And you go back to the question again and you ask yourself, okay, now what? What it does is it's like an existential stop in your life. It brings you to a pause. And in the aftermath of asking yourself that question, eventually you'll get to nothing. You'll get to, oh, yeah, so really now what? Like what am I gonna do? Inadvertently what it does is you now end up responsible, but not in the world of blame, more in the world of you now have the say. You have the say now. But you have to work your way through all of those items. You have to work your way through your explanations and your reasons and your justifications and your feelings. You're going to have to work your way through the feelings because, whether we like it or not, even the most people who would say they're the most robust and don't lean into their feelings, everybody does. Everybody's waiting on a feeling. Everybody's waiting on, excitement or, like I said, confidence or love. We're waiting on it to show up. And what I endeavored to do with this book is have you actually start to see that that's not a very smart way to live your life.
Okay, so it's true. So, you're responsible, not in the blame. You have to work your way through your feelings. Okay, so by not taking responsibility, you start to fixate on the consequences of not by not taking by responsibility.
Right.
Um, and then we go through this whole process, and yes, you're right. People look for the feelings of love and all those things, and working it through, waiting for it to show up, basically waiting for something to save them or a feeling. Uh, so so we're responsible for those feelings then?
Well, who else would be?
Yeah, exactly.
So, so look, like when I say, this is what was done to me, okay? When I say that, it's not just what was done to me, it's what I'm now left with, right? So in the book I talk about um you don't have a past per se. You are living with what you did with it. Now we don't think like that. We don't think I think, if let's say I've had a really tough childhood, let's say 6 months ago I went bankrupt. Let's say it doesn't matter. All too often it feels like this is what's happened to me, right? And it feels like those things are living on, right? So, I'm dealing with the impact of the divorce. I'm dealing with the impact of losing my business. I'm dealing with the impact of losing my job. I'm dealing with the impact of a marriage that doesn't work or a friendship that doesn't work or my relationship with my parents or But what people need to really understand and what we dig into in the book is it's not that past that's got you. What's got you is what you've done with it. So that is to say, how does that live with you, right? And so in the book, we start to stack it up, right? You start to see like, oh yeah, I've got a wall of things here. I've got a lot of things. We're not going through life, Rita, like free and opened up and, with untainted. We're going through life tainted. It feels like we've been tainted by life. And what we start to uncover in the book is you're tainted by what you've hung on to. And the past doesn't feel like that for us. The past doesn't feel like we're hanging on to it. It feels like it's stuck to it, right? And that we want to let go, right? Like, oh yeah, I want to get over that. I want to get past that. But you'll notice the conversations for it live with you in a very unique way. And that's where the responsibility starts to come in. Start to say, okay, are you willing to shift this for yourself in terms of the way you talk about it, the way you describe it, the way that it lives on with you in terms of like your emotional attachment to some of that stuff, how you explain yourself? Are you willing to say, hey, you know what? That was an experience, but it was only mine. There was a lot of different experiences for other people who were involved in that with me at the time. And then you start to feel like responsibility becomes something you actually have to do. You have to say, no one's going to fix this for me. No one's going to live this life for me, right? And it's not a harsh thing. It's actually the most loving thing you can ever do for yourself is when you finally take ownership of your life.
Mm-hmm. I 100 like this book, I 100% agree with you. And actually, I kind of adopted just kind of what you said when I was really, really young. Because I mean, everybody's got a story. They didn't grow up in the most 100%, great lovey-dovey, parental environment. Not to say my parents were like, I mean, they weren't that bad, but
Yeah,
you know, you see. I remember for some reason some of my. Anyways, the point is, I didn't get 100% of that guidance, or my parents were not 100% there for me. But I mean, I was just never that person to dwell on that. I was just like, I have two hands, I have a mouth, I have a brain. All right, I can do, I could figure it out and just do what I got to do. I mean,
yeah,
I never dwelled in that. And but I noticed other kids would maybe would come and visit me or whatever, and they would notice the differences, like, there was, oh, your parents don't really care about you or whatever. And I just never kind of like bounced off because I knew my parents loved me. I just didn't have the capacity to just really, really be there. So, for a multitude of reasons. So, but I just never dwelled on that. And just, so that really resonated with me because I never carried that story of like, oh, whatever it is, abandoned, like they did,
yeah,
I was abandoned. I wasn't, I never saw it that way because
right.
I was more
So
in,
there's a couple of different ways that works, though, right? And I think it's really important for anybody who's listening to you, because when you were young, you flipped it for yourself, okay? But this is the thing that I want people to understand. Even your victories are your story. So what people need to understand is, like, you don't have a story. You are one. You're the character, right? So it's like, so what did I come out of that with? Now, obviously, like you're pointing to, there's things we come out of our childhood with, or even later in life, that bounced us back. Like we came out of that like feeling empowered, right? Like, oh yeah, this is, sure, this sort of stuff happened, but look what I've done with it, right? The question that really fascinates me about people is, um, what would it be like if you woke up today, not you, but you woke up not you, and you looked out into life and you didn't see what you usually see, and you didn't see, and even though what you might think is, well, I see something really great, and I dealt with this a lot in my life and in my career. People talk about, well, I believe anything's possible. anything's possible is a range. It's not anything. It's given what I know, this is what I see as possible, right? And even in your wildest imagination, there's a limit to that too. So, like I talk about in the book, no matter even the most mundane childhoods or the most traumatic ones, everybody comes out with something,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And everybody comes out with something. So the question is, what did I bounce out of there with, and what have I used that to kind of formulate for myself? I think this has always been a fascination of mine in terms of like how we evolve as human beings, how we be like, how did I become this guy? How did I become? I could say the usual stuff. Well, I was raised in Glasgow and it was tough and la 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 la. Yeah, but not everybody turned out like me. Like that. What was it? What happened? And so there's a portion of this book where we get into, you'll see you made some decisions. And those decisions became uh, like milestones in your life. Some people look at their decisions like really positively,
Hmm.
but they're still decisions. They're
Hmm.
still ultimately like that's kind of turned us into this thing, right? That's good at this and not good at that, which is when we started getting to this notion of fixing, changing, improving. And then there's the big question in the book where I say, well, what if you're not any of that? What if it's none of that? Which is a
Hmm.
bit mind blowing and a little unsettling, right? It's a little unsettling, like, like holy, what if I'm not this? There's a part in the book where I say, when you look at yourself or when you talk about yourself, good or bad, you're reaffirming all of that you've already decided is true. So you're reaffirming that for yourself. So my strengths, my weaknesses, my good, my bad. So if you ask somebody, and what I think is a profound question, and the question is, who are you? They'll tell you what they do, or they're a mom or a dad, they're a brother or a sister, or their job. But when you get past all of that, then they'll get down to feelings. Well, I'm determined, and you know, I'm analytical, and I'm whatever it might be, and you go down that rabbit hole, and you say, what if it's none of that? That's a much more challenging place to kind of start to think about your life. Like, what if everything I've come to believe about me is not true, but rather just what I've attached myself to?
Okay. And they would attach themselves to those traits because that's something that that's their ideal way of wanting to be based on what they saw around them.
Well, it's more like what's familiar,
Okay, what's familiar? Okay.
traits and characteristics that seem like, I mean, everybody's had this thought, like, I wish I was a little more X or a little less Y. And I say there's no obstacle to any of those for you other than your attachment to what you have already decided you are, right? Like, I've written about this in other books. Um, our fundamental view of ourselves, the one we don't say, is not a positive one. It can't be, right? And the reason it can't be is because you have to be driven in this life to be the way you are. So there's like a machinery. Like, like I'm driven to be Gary. You're driven to be Rita. You're driven. You get up every day to be that person. When you make yourself a cup of coffee, or you go to the store, or like it doesn't always feel like driven, but you are on a pathway of being you, right? And I say, well, what if that's not you? What if right now you could be some other way that you've never really experienced yourself as? What if right now you could be bold and adventurous right now, like right now? And so people will look internally, people will look for, well, I don't feel that way. That's right.
Okay.
And that's when you can tell you've based a lot of your pathway on what's going on internally.
Right. Okay. So let's just say someone, you know, like says, okay, I'm going to try a different, I'm going to be bold. I've never been bold
Yeah,
before, but I'm going to tr be bold. And
right.
so what does that do for them? Does that make them more flexible, like in their thinking or in ways to like, what does that do for them?
Well, remember, so when I say I'm going to be bold, right, I'm out to be bold today, right? It's still in my logic of what bold is and this, right? It's still what this is, determining what bold would be, right? But if I really step out there, I'll get outside of what would be predictable for me. If I really step out and take it on, like, I'm not feeling this, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to get out there and I'm going to do the first thing that comes to mind right now in terms of just being bold. What would I do right now? Right. And if you ask yourself the question authentically, you'll actually come up with an answer right away. Like there'll be something right there, like, oh, I should make that call. Or, I should connect with that person, apply for that job, start that. I should do that right now. What'll kick in will be all the reasons why you can't. That's the you that you know yourself as. You can't. So when you take on something like, and a simple thing like being bold and stepping out in your life, it'll get very unpredictable. And the more you do it, even scary. Because you're in territory that you're not comfortable with. And you won't be feeling it. And you might be experiencing fear. But I want you to know that's not you. That's the
Okay.
you that you think you are. That's
Uh,
not you. And so
mhm.
it's about starting to imagine like creating life on, like, as I like to call it, the skinny branches of the tree, and getting yourself out there to see what life feels like when you take on from something you've created rather than something you've been trying to fix.
Okay. Something you've created rather than something that you're trying to fix. Love that. Um, so, you do address, the personal development, industry in terms of like they're so fixated on always trying to fix themselves, fix themselves. So how does the endless pursuit of self-improvement actually make things worse? You might have kind of sort of
Well,
answered that throughout this.
yeah, no, but it is important. It starts with the idea that something's broken.
Yeah.
It starts with the idea that there's something about you that's broken. And here's what I say: no, there's nothing wrong with any of that. That just does what that does. There's nothing wrong with it. In fact, if you think about it the way I'm creating it right now, if I actually saw that my fixation on fixing this thing, right, perpetuates the thing. So it gets to live on every day as I'm trying to improve it. I'm not good at this. I'm not good at that. And that's where a created life starts to come in, because a created life doesn't do anything with any of that. You just acknowledge that that's there. Like, oh, yeah, like this is how I feel right now. Okay, good. Now, what am I creating? What am I up to? What is my life about? And that takes me in other directions. I'll still, particularly at the beginning, I'll still have a lot of those familiar feelings, sensations, same logic, same kind of ideas. But the more I poke out there, the more I start to get out there into the unknown, what I realize is my capacity and my capabilities are far greater than this little kind of ball of noise that I've been fascinated with for so long.
I love that. So you're shifting the focus to basically creator, like what you're speaking, what you're doing, what is it creating? That's you're shifting
Right.
it.
Right. So the interesting thing is, if you think of like your life till now and you track yourself for the last 10, 20, 30 years, and you track back, you'll see you've been on a pathway of trying to make life better, right? So it starts with this ain't it. So whatever it was, right? When you were whatever age, 12, 13, 15, 20, this ain't it. I need to go to college. That'll fix it. I go to college. I come out of college. I get myself a job. No, that's not it. I got to keep going. I know what a really nice apartment, that'll do the trick. Or I need to meet somebody. That's the thing. But you'll notice you keep coming back to the same point. What's the point? This ain't it. This ain't it. Keep coming back to this ain't it. If you follow the track, you'll see your life has been about fixing. Your entire life has been about fixing what you think needs fixed. That's not a creative life. That's the life where you wake up somewhere and say, hold on, what happened here? Like, how did I get here? How did this turn out? Like, this wasn't, no one's 8 or 9 saying, yeah, I'm going to get divorced and maybe lose a house when I'm older, or, go to prison, or, start a business and struggle. No one's got that as a plan, right? You've got big ideas when you're 8 and 10 and 12, and you're thinking about the future, and it might only be 6 months away, or it might be some fantasy about what you're going to do when you're a grown up. But that gets crushed down, and it gets crushed down by this fixation on trying to solve the problems of our lives. And anybody who's listening to this or watching this right now, look at your life and look at what you're not happy with and look at what you're trying to fix. There's not an ounce of creation in it. Nothing's getting created. And so in the book, what I say is, living from a place of creating who I am and creating what this is really about for me, it doesn't make your life problem-free, but they're the right problems. They don't hit the same. And they don't hit the same because nothing's broken. It's about creating and then just dealing with whatever the obstacle is in this game of creating who I am, creating what my life's about, and then honoring what I'm making my life about. I mean, I don't think there's anybody who wouldn't want to go back in their life and say, man, I wish I'd kind of designed more of the arc of my life instead of just kind of ending up here or ending up there. And that's a lot of what we're out to establish for people here is it's time to stop fixing. You're not broken. There's nothing wrong. It's time to create and fulfill on and develop yourself. And it's not about a later life when you're fixed or when things turn out. It's about now what, like right now, right? And that's what I want people to get in this book. I want people to get access to right now, right? Like right now, like in your experience of yourself, in your experience of what's going on in your life, that you actually realize that it's always been a right now phenomenon. And right now, possibilities right at your fingertips.
Yeah. I will say, guys, like after like reading the book, I I didn't quite finish it, but I was very, very close, which is very like proud of myself because right now I'm the only person raising a toddler. So to have time to actually read the whole book quickly like that was very impressive to me. That's how good Gary's book is. I was quite impressed. Um, I'm saying that to say this. So after reading the book, you now what takes on a whole different meaning. It becomes like a very powerful statement phrase, because it really kicks you into gear. You really truly understand, yeah, you were the creator. Now what? Like, you stop like going back into that victim type of, mentality or story, even
Yeah,
though people don't like to say victim anymore, but by replaying the story or replaying some kind of explanation as to maybe why you're stuck or why you're at a certain level or whatever it is. And I like you address this in the book too, because you say what you speak, and how you explain yourself to other people, is just reaffirming, you're telling yourself those things that keep you stuck by what's
right,
coming out of your mouth. So it's very, very powerful that
right,
you shift your focus away from that, or you pay attention to what you're saying because what you're telling
right.
yourself. Yeah.
Because it's really, look, we think we're describing our lives. So, if you open up your emails and you got 6 emails, right? And you're like, oh man, I need to get all those responded to. Oh, I'm just tired. It's been a long day, or it's been a tough week, or I'm raising a kid on my own, doing all this on my own, right? That's a real situation for you. That's not some fantasy for you. That's your reality, right? And then you're having this experience yourself, right? What you don't realize though is when you're kind of in that little mode, and you will use that as like a snapshot, right, of what your average person would kind of feel, right? Um, you're not describing. You are literally in the moment generating your experience. You're generating it. You're bringing it forth. You're bringing it forth in language, right? So, in the automation of our lives, as you speak, there you be, right? So that's why, like, people need to understand that what I said earlier. You don't have a story. You are your story, because the emotions and the experiences and the moods, they're woven in there. You can't separate them out, right? They're woven into it. So as you talked about, the entire book, like all of my books, it's a bit of a philosophical Trojan horse. So you feel like you're just getting a book about, oh, this guy's going to tell me this thing or that thing. And what you're getting exposed to is some really profound philosophy that's been used, for centuries, and grounded in existentialism, little notes of stoicism and ontology and phenomenology. But what you'll notice is, and what you pointed to is, know what is not 2 words. So know what's an interruption, right? It's like a line for you, right? So when I open up the emails and I know that feeling I'm having, and I acknowledge the feeling I'm having, and I say, okay, now what? It immediately gets me on the hook for the next moment. So I can't explain it away. I'm on the hook for it. Now what? Well, I'm not going to do anything with it. Okay, that's your choice. Well, now I'm going to deal with them. Okay, well, that's your choice, right? So now what becomes, once you get to the point of the book where you got to, now what becomes like a doorstop. There's no hiding. There's nowhere to go. It leaves you, but it doesn't leave you, and it was never my intention to do that anyway, but it doesn't leave you burdened by it. You're actually getting a little jazzed by the idea of now
Yeah.
what,
Yeah, you are. I
right?
did. I was like, now what? Okay. Yeah, you do. You're gonna get a spark of like, hey, now what? It's
Right.
like it's kind of
Yeah.
exciting. Yeah.
Right. Very good. So it puts you on. It takes a long time in that book to get you there, but what it gets you is to possibility and opportunity.
hmm
It gets you out of it. It gets you out of the mud and the dirt and the noise and the story and the reasons and the circumstances, and we've all got them. We've all got our excuses. We've all got our reasons. We've all got our judgments and opinions. We all have them. And what this book is out to do is to really, first of all, let you see how much of that you're living in, because that's the hard part. The hard part of reasons and excuses is you can see other people's. You can't quite see your own. It's hard to see your own. Your own's just your reality. You're like, no, this is my life. And if somebody was to say, well, that's your excuse, oh, I get offended. You're like, oh, that's not an excuse. I'm really dealing with it. Right. And then,
hmm
but in the book, you start to see like your own. You start to see like, oh my gosh, I've got myself on the hook here for this. And I'm explaining away my potential. I'm explaining away the possibility of my life. We're so fascinated with improving who we think we are that we give up on the possibility of who we could be.
I like that. We're so fixated on improving who we are that we give up the possibility of who we could be.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, love that. Yeah. That's really, really powerful. And yeah, and I just can't believe how now what is such after reading the book, like everybody when you read the book, you're gonna get it. Like you're gonna start saying, now what? Like after like throughout your day, now what? What? And it kind of
Right.
like pulls your energy towards a solution as
Well, it gets you
opposed.
here.
hmm
Right. It gets you here. Right. And then there's a whole bit in there about time, of course, which was transformational for me writing that book. Like, I blew my mind when I had this massive realization about how I've lived my life in a linear fashion, past, present, and future. And I just got how I'd made myself small. And people might say, well, you're an author and you've sold all these books and made yourself. No, but I made myself emotionally small. I made myself, be this kind of friend, this kind of father, this kind of husband. Like, there was no room for me to be anybody else in that. And there was also this massive burden. I'm getting older now, so time was on my mind. I'm like, how much longer am I going to live? And have I used my time wisely? All of it a massive distraction from the possibility of now what.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So you're very clear this book doesn't offer comfort. It offers clarity. So who is this book for and what does it ask of the reader? I think you kind of sort of answered it throughout the interview, but
Well, I don't think. Yeah, I talk about this in the book. I talk about how I became a thinker,
Mhm.
how I think, and I don't mean the thoughts that I'm having. I have thoughts all the time. You have thoughts all the time. Some of them are good, some not so good. Almost all of them automatic. So whatever you're thinking about or thoughting about today, 80% plus of that you thought about yesterday, right? So those are all automatic. What I really want people to get here is to actually show themselves how to think, show themselves how to think. And what is it to sit with some of the things that I'm saying in that book and let it just be with you. Not like, oh yeah, I got this or I understand this. No, percolate, let it sit with you. So fundamentally the book's for anybody. But sure, it's going to have this appeal to people who, you know what, I have done some work. I do feel as if I understand myself, and yet here I am. Like I'm treading the same kind of water. It's not making the difference. Knowing myself hasn't made the difference, and that's an important distinction in this book because I talk about the distinction between gathering knowledge and actually knowing something, right? So this is the problem with a lot of self-help, personal development stuff. People are gathering data points and categories, and they can explain themselves, but there's nowhere to go with that because they don't. It hasn't impacted them. It hasn't been like, and that's I suggest that's probably what you got out of the book. You got impacted. Like you got like, oh wow, like real like there was a personal experience of reading this book. That's in everything that I do. I mean, it's kind of selfish, but I write the books that I want to read.
Mhm.
I want the books that challenge me, that challenge me to think, that poke me and prod me about some of my precious sacred cows of my life, my what I think is true. Like I want to be poked by that. I want to be left in a place of having to really think, but not where I'm discombobulated, but actually put me in a place where I can actually become my own thinker, right? And I know people believe that they do think, but the reality is most of the time we don't. We're just on autopilot doing what we do, living this life. And this book in itself, I mean, I've said it multiple times. I transformed writing this book. Like it challenged, like ideas were coming at me in ways that I never thought they would. And I talk about it in the book, moments of writing the book with literally tears running down my face because I felt as if I was being, informed by something. Like I just felt as if this is coming at, there was no way to to avoid it. And so I really feel as if it's probably the most powerful book I've written, and it's my eighth. I've written a lot of books,
Mhm.
and but I've never said this about any other book.
Hmm.
Um, it moved me and it shifted me off of my axis.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I read it. It is very powerful. I just love it. You put it all together in that phrase. Now what? Just really packs a punch with everything that you mentioned in the book. You really, really go. So, guys, once you buy the book and read it, you'll really like go through that process and like understand the feeling or what I'm saying. And then you'll start to really just use that phrase throughout your day to kind of really percolate you, like to kind of get you excited about possibility and you as the creator, as opposed to waiting on something or explaining away something. Um, so y- you reframe self-sabotage as blind loyalty to who we already decided we are. If it's not a willpower problem, what do we actually do differently once we understand that?
Yeah, yeah, it's an interesting subject, self-sabotage, um, because it's not logical. It's not logical that I would undermine myself. It's not logical. It's like illogical. Like I'm a human being. Why would I be cutting myself off at the knees? Like it doesn't until you get that it serves a purpose. And the purpose of self-sabotage is blind loyalty to who you've decided you are. And the reason why it's blind loyalty to who you've decided you are is because the prospect of you being somebody else is terrifying. The prospect of you not being you is terrifying, right? So people, once you start to see it, the logic of it, then all the things that you do to undermine yourself is to keep you going, because then you can fix it, and then you can undermine, and then you can fix it. So that little hamster wheel just keeps turning, and you get to keep doing it. Why do I get to keep doing it? Why would I do such a thing? Because it's familiar. It's a life of the familiar. It is not a life of possibility. It's a life of the same, except now I'm older and I'm living somewhere else and I'm doing some other things, but I keep falling into the same patterns. And it's all to just justify and magnify this thing that you already determined is broken anyway.
Yes, love that. And you also address, you know, even if you're aware of it, you're aware you're a self-sabotager, but you
Right.
still do it. Or you even say, even if you're aware you're an a-hole. Some a-holes are aware and they say, I'm an a-hole, and they still are an a-hole.
Correct.
So,
Right.
and we're,
And isn't
yeah,
that weird though? Isn't that weird that I would know I'm that person and yet I keep doing it? And it's because the only thing I have is knowledge of it. That's all. I only have knowledge. This is a great thing for people to understand. Whenever you're engaging in personal development work or transformational work, whatever it might be for you, right? Personal growth. If it's not changing what you do, you're just gathering information. It's not penetrating. It's got to penetrate, right? It's got to be like, so like you talked about somebody realizing they're the a-hole. Okay, that won't make any difference until you start to get into something called the truth. So what's the truth then? The truth about who I've been and the impact of that on me and on other people. And you actually dig into that and you're like, wow, like it's not glamorous. If I take away all the positivity and the shtick about it and just be honest and say, this is what it's like to be in a relationship with me. This is what it's like to be my sister or my brother. This is what it's like to be a friend of mine. This is what it's like for me to be me, following that track. This is what I've done to myself. that's a level of honesty that people don't want to get to. They don't. They want to get to, no, but I'm a good person. They want to go there, right? There's no cheese done that tunnel. And that's what's confronting about this book. There's so many turns we take, and there's no cheese done there. There's only truth. And that truth might get you by the throat. And you might even get, annoyed at me, right? Who does this guy think he is, right? What is he telling me? But what I want you to understand is that's the work. That's the work. That's the work that'll take what you know beyond knowledge. It's not knowledge, it's not just knowledge anymore. It's so profound. It's so powerful that actually I can't go back to being the a-hole because I see what it does to me and I see what it does to other people.
Yes. Yeah. So let's go back to you replace what you call motivational responsibility with unconditional responsibility. No exceptions, no escape clauses. What's the difference and why does it matter?
Yeah. So if you take the idea, so I've seen this before. I've heard people talking about extreme responsibility, right? I've heard people talking about radical responsibility. None of those things are real. You're either responsible or you're not. That's it. It's like you can't be a little pregnant, right? You're either pregnant or you're not pregnant. If you examine your life through that lens, the lens that I'm talking about, right? People will be responsible if it suits them. Oh yeah, I'm going to take that on. But there are whole swathes of our lives that will just write off to outwith my control. And we'll talk about them a lot because, again, they think responsibility is about control. It's not about control, right? Responsibility is about realizing it's all coming from me. Now, I don't mean in a really selfish way. I just want people to understand, like, your experience of being alive is up to you. Mm. It's up to you. Now, people might say, well, I have a neurological condition, or I get that. In what way can you be responsible for the degree to which that is impacting the quality of your life? What can you add? What can you take away? When you approach your life from this very plain, very simple, I'm responsible, you start to see you have way more say than you ever thought you did, and way more power to impact every area of your life, your finances, your body. Well, I'm kind of stuck with my body and this is what I do. Yeah, but you're kind of throwing it up to the gods. Mm-hmm. Right? It's kind of like, well, I can't, or I struggle with this, or okay, but now who's on the hook for it? Right? Like nothing will shift, which brings you back to the whole philosophy of what really is.
And why do you think we do that? Like we just kind of not wanting to take responsibility for whatever it is. Like it seems to be, a lot of people seem to do this, obviously, or personal development would not be here.
Right.
So is it just seems easier? Do we learn this from like picking up somewhere in society? Like or is it a human nature condition? Like I'm just curious what your response would be about this.
It's from the beginnings of time. It's been a big conversation in philosophy forever, right? Hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of years. Like we just throw our hands up to nature, right? Or we throw our hands up to our belief system, or we throw our hands up to, look, this thing happened to me. We're all doing it. We're all doing it in little ways and in big ways. Even the people who say, no, I'm super responsible. No, you're not. It's all over your language. It's everywhere. It's permeating everything, right? Because what's the alternative, right? So, and that's really what it comes down to. See, If I'm not responsible, if it's not on me, then I can continue along in this on this familiar path. And anything that comes along that's, you know, too big, too obtrusive, too demanding, too whatever, I can just write it off. I can just say, well, I did my best. Well, you know, I've never been good at that. Well, right. I can just throw my arms up. That's a choice. That's a moment where you're saying, I'm not responsible for that. You can't make that statement without being responsible for statements.
Mm.
So you are, whether you like it or not. You have to be. There's no alternative, right? So we want to do that because everything's explainable. Everything keeps us within this. People call it a comfort zone. I don't. I've always called it a familiar zone. In all the years I've been doing this work, we're not attracted to comfort. We're attracted to familiar.
Familiar.
You
Yeah.
know, because there's so much of our life, by the way, that are not comfortable. Yet we keep doing it. So it's got nothing to do with comfort. It's everything to do with familiar.
Hmm.
And I want people to realize even where you're saying I'm not responsible for that. First thing is you're probably in a world of blame, which you've got to get out of, right? And an easy way to get to it, by the way, is to say, so let's say you don't want to even look at some areas of your life from responsibility. There's an impact of that. Can you be responsible for the impact of you not being responsible for that area of your life?
I like that. Can you be responsible for not being responsible for that
Very
area of your
good.
life? Yeah, that's
Totally, right? Right? Like, can you be responsible? And this is a kicker that gets a lot of people. Can you be responsible for their lack of responsibility?
you mean the other person.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I be responsible for the impact of their lack of responsibility or not? So it starts to kind of like, it starts to get you with your hands on the levers and dials of your own experience of yourself, your own experience of being alive. It's like, I like to think of it like you've got leaks.
Mhm.
It's like power leaking from you, right? Emotional stability leaking from you. There's, loss of confidence, right? Sometimes it's like the inability to fully express your love for another. Can't. There's always something in the way. Why? Well, this is the way. Hold on. Now you're getting into explaining why you are the way you are. And you'll see in there, you're going to put someone or something else on the hook for you being the way you are. And you're just going to keep leaking power doing that.
Yes, absolutely. The best way, I mean, for me, the best like what do you call like an analogy is like I love the movie Tomb Raider with Angelina Jolie, right? She's this
Yeah.
like action hero or whatever. It is because she's whatever. So when things are being thrown at her and she's navigating through these, horrendous conditions and they are horrendous in the movies and she's not focusing on, oh my God, this thing is being thrown at me. What do I do? Oh my God, I can't move. She's not doing that. She's looking for another resource to like, pigeon off and go here to from there. And she's actually also pre-calculating the room and seeing what she can use as a resource. She's really quick and she's sharp, and that's how she navigates through all this turmoil. She's not stopping, she's not crying, she's not freaking out, she's not poor me, woos me. She's not hiding behind a rock. She's just like constantly using what lever she could pull or what she can do. So that's my way of kind of that's always my way of like that's the best way to kind of deal with life.
Well, yeah. Well, the thing that I hear in what you're saying, and I do talk about this in the book. People talk about being present, and people talk about not being present. And I say to people, no, no, you're always here. You're just not always here for what's here, right? You're here, but you're here for something else, right? And that's another access to, oh, if I look at my life right now and I tell myself the truth, and I look at like the places where maybe it's not going as well as I want it to, or I'm stuck, or I'm stopped. And if you get underneath the surface, you'll see that you're not there for what's actually there, right? You might be there perpetuating some old myth about yourself, proving that you're stuck, finding evidence that you're stuck, right? Proving that whoever did whatever they did to you screwed you over and now you can't get out of it and that all this work isn't working. Like you're building evidence for something. And so that was one of the big things for me. Like, it was a big aha for me in this book when I was left with how do I get people here in this book? How do I get them here so that they get a sense of what's here for themselves? And, I'm boastful enough to think that I managed it.
Yeah. Yeah, you did. It's an amazing book and everybody buy the book. It's an amazing book. It's just like I'm gonna continue reading whatever. I think I just have like, a few pages left to go. And it's just incredibly empowering. It's just I just, and I'm always like you said, yeah, addicted to like always reading the other book and da 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 da. And yeah, this one definitely sh is a completely shift to more of the creator, like you as the creator. Like, what are you creating with your decision, the story you're telling yourself or to others, and also the words you speak is just reaffirming whatever it is that you're saying, whether it's you're giving your power to other people or circumstances and not taking on the power yourself by just saying, now what? And, going out and looking at possibility as opposed to all this stuff, the stories and explanations, excuses, and whatever, that keeps you stuck or whatever it is that keeps you in. Um, and so I love that. So thank you so much for writing the book. And everybody buy the book. Now What? By Gary John Bishop. Is there any words you like to say before we
Um,
close?
I think, one of the things that I've grounded all my work in, every book I've ever written, that you are a creature of conversation. You exist in language. I know we think we exist in our feelings, but we elicit feelings and language and experiences and emotions and stories and dramas and everything else and excitement. And that I want people to get like, no matter how stuck you might feel, I'd like you to understand that what's stuck is what you're talking about.
Hmm.
The conversation is stuck. And, pick anyone in my books, they'll interrupt the conversation that you're in.
Yes. And I just really realized how powerful that is. I mean, I've always heard this about w words we speak, da da da, but um especially after reading your book, it really just made me realize, what both parties are reconfirming and what mindset and energy that puts you into. Like, and for example, someone had done something to me that, others would consider betrayal or, wrong or unjust and da 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 da. So I had a friend and people like to, she's just like texting y'all about, I think this is so wrong. And she's going on and on about all this whole situation and how, you were done so wrong, da da da, all this stuff. And she's going on and on. And like had other friends who do that too. But I'm like, you're more upset about this than I am. I'm like,
Right.
and she was pulling me in because I've initially never initially I did a kind of obviously got a little bit when the situation occurred, I was a little bit upset, but then I just pulled myself, wait a second, you know what? I'm like, it is what it is. That's on them. They want to be like that. That's not whatever. I can still do what I'm doing and still do this and da 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 and just focus on, my life and what resources I have available to me to continue on creating. And
Yeah.
so, but she pulled me in. And she's going on, and then she got me she was like hooking me into this like energetic conversation. I say energy because
Yeah.
it makes you feel that way. And I'm like, wait
Yeah.
a second. After doing it, I'm like, wait a second. This just reaffirms like this is not how I want to converse or like think, because I could feel it. And I'm like, and then my mind was like kind of like going into this like victimness and like it puts
Right.
you into this like state of anger, right? You feel in sucking your energy and hindering your mindset to not really be focused on possibilities. You're just focused on anger and blame and it's and just yeah. And so I
Yeah.
was just like yeah. So I was like, "Ugh, I can't talk like this. I have to like find a way to like tell her like thank you so much for being concerned and just explain to her like i'm I'm the creator of my life and this is not going to stop me you know
There's a really important thing I think you got for yourself there. You had whatever you're left with about your life in the past, you're left with what's incomplete for you. So that is to say, you're left with however you would describe it. And your friend, and look, she's clearly appreciates you, loves you, wants to support you, wants to make a difference. And this is how many people function in life. They want to make a difference. What they don't realize is you're going to be left with something. You'll have to live from there now. And so what you did was you kind of saw for yourself, this is not really the pathway I want to go down. And you chose to leave yourself with that they did what they did. That's up to them. I'm looking at my life from here on out. That leaves you in a place of much more empowerment and in a place where you can live with that past now, right? Now, there might be elements of that that are still maybe a little hooked by, and you can work your way through those. But what I want people to understand, and you can work your way through it, by the way, by saying, what's the degree to which I'm willing to be responsible for what I've been left with, right? But I think there's a really important part there for people to understand. You're left with the story that you decided in every aspect of your life. What did you decide, though? That's the question.
love that Gary. All right. Thanks for being on the podcast and, being in this world and contributing so much of your gift and insight to the world. So to help us, shift and be creators of our own life and take full responsibility of our own life.
Yeah.
And enjoy the rest of your day. And guys, buy the book. It'll be released today when this podcast is released, July 13th, on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, any bookshelf. It's publishers Harper One, which is an imprint of Harper Collins. So thanks, Gary.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right.
All right.
If you learned something new or were inspired to live happy being well, please be sure to subscribe to the Happy Being Well podcast so you don't miss an upcoming episode. Also, please feel free to leave a 5-star review, including what you learned or what inspired you in today's episode. This podcast is presented by happybeingwell.com, your online store for natural wellness products, so you can live happy being well. Order your next all-natural essential oil, all-natural face mask, all-natural bath soap, all-natural deodorant, herbal tea, crystals including crystal home decor and kitchen items, irresistible leggings, and much more at happybeingwell.com. Free shipping on all orders within the USA.